Welcome to Awake.
Hello there.
Hi, Pierre. Welcome to Awake to Oneness Radio. I am Caroline Chang, your host. The mission of Awake to Oneness Radio is to inspire the world to awaken to the universal truth of oneness. Science is now teaching us that all life is interconnected and interdependent, and spirituality and ancient wisdom has been teaching the truth of oneness for eons. So science is just now catching up. And what that means that we're all connected, we're all one. So what you do to another person, you're literally doing to another aspect of yourself. And when mankind awakens to the universal truth of oneness, there will be peace on earth. Today's show topic is 365 Blessings to Heal with Pierre Pradervand. Did I say your last name correctly?
Pradervand.
Thank you.
And here's the book.
Here's the book. Wonderful. Thank you for showing the book cover. Yes, 365 Blessings to Heal. And Pierre, this is your second time as my guest on Awake to Oneness Radio. Thank you so much and Pierre is connecting with us all the way from Switzerland. I'm in America on the East Coast in Pennsylvania, and it is 11 o'clock in the morning here and 7 o'clock in the evening there.
Six. No, sorry, it's 5 o'clock here now.
Five. Okay, 5.
6 hour difference.
6 hour difference, right. Now we're in standard time. We changed the clocks last week. Yes. Okay, Pierre, will you share, because some of my listeners may already be familiar with your work, but some may not. So can you share with our audience about your journey and how you came to do the wonderful work that you're doing now?
Well, first I'd like to say that I have a very, very long career that spans over 55 years. And I've traveled, lived, studied, worked in over 40 countries of the 5 continents, lived in very varied cultures, had very varied occupations, from a sociologist to director of development programs, journalist, consultant, international consultant. And I've been for the past 26 years, been running my own workshops on personal development and spirituality, which has become an extraordinary joy. And I also have been doing a little writing on the side. I've published around 15 books in 13 different languages, basically, but not solely, but basically on themes of personal development and spirituality. And in English, I've published one book many years ago on grassroots Africa, but the main book has been also a book on a death row inmate I've been befriending for 22 years, which is called Messages of Life from Death Row. Messages of Life from Death Row. And it's an amazing book because it describes the trip of a spiritual giant, a man who entered death row because he was for 25 years on death row and 33 years in prison for a crime we absolutely know, even have scientific proof, he did not commit. But if you're poor and black in Texas, your chances for fair justice slightly decreased, to put it mildly.
Right. Pierre, I was hearing you very well until a minute ago. Your hand must be covering your mic. Move your hands away from the computer.
Okay.
Yes.
Like that?
That's better. Yes.
Okay. Now, so this man has done an incredible trip in prison and passed from a state of total revolt and anger to unconditional love and forgiveness, including for his gods. And so that's a book that's available on Amazon for anyone who's interested. And it's it's a deeply spiritual book, and he also explains in his use of blessing how it turned him around at one critical moment in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And then my two best books in English are The Gentle Art of Blessing, which was published in a good many languages, Gentle Art of Blessing,
Yes.
and this one that's just come out now,
Yes.
365 Blessings, which I think would make a superb Christmas present for anyone looking for an original book, because this book has one blessing per day on all the themes you can imagine: streets, child soldiers, street children, people who are contemplating suicide, blessings for an illness, for all themes, including making love, because it's for me one of the best blessings of the whole book, because I really want to show that spirituality covers every single field of life, or then for me it's not worth its salt. Either
Yes.
spirituality is something that you can take with you every time, in every situation. It's part of your essence, your very essence, or then it's not worth practicing. So I'm expecting this book to work well too, because the feedback, I have a French version, a shorter French version has come out, and the feedback is very, very positive. And then, so for 26 years, I've been running my workshops with great joy. I'm doing a lot of volunteering. And one period in my career, to explain how I discovered blessing, which has been my main spiritual activity for many years, I was in a situation where I was put in front of an impossible choice: either keep my job and accept something that was highly unethical, or quit my job. And there was one person who just hated my guts, who was behind this whole plot to get me out of my work. And of course, so I resigned. And the vicious aspect of the whole scheme was that there were 4 organizations involved that employed me, 4 NGOs, and they discussed between themselves, if we put Pierre in front of this choice, either keep his job and accepting something we know that is unethical for him, or quitting, he will quit. So that was a way of sacking me without paying any compensation.
I see.
And for months and months, I was eaten up by the most incredible resentment, Caroline. It was just resentment is like a rat eating your entrails, literally. And I was meditating, praying, using all sorts of spiritual texts, mantras, everything you do. Nothing for it. Dragged on month after month, and it became a total obsession, because I would wake up in the morning under the shower, I'd already be thinking of this. Wherever I went, doing the washing up or going to the post office, this was constantly churning in my mind as what psychologists called an obsession, an obsessive thought, something you can't get rid of. And I knew I was harming myself, but it was I just couldn't manage to shake it. And then one day, reading the Sermon on the Mount, the simple statement by Jesus, "Bless those who curse you," was so clear. Well, evidently, Pierre, it's so simple. All you have to do is bless them. So there and then I started blessing them in their health, in their joy, in their peace, in their finances, in their work, in every conceivable manner. And all of a sudden, a few months later, I started blessing people in the street, on the train, in the supermarket, wherever I was. And it became so joyful. I used to travel quite a lot on the train at that time. And I'd walk the whole length of the train both ways to be sure to bless every single person on the train. It was so lovely.
Yes.
And then suddenly one day I was preparing a talk I'd been asked to give in Zurich at an international youth meeting on the theme Healing the World. And it's the topic is not innocent, healing the world. And while I was writing my lecture, my talk, suddenly I received a gust of inspiration that was so powerful. And I was like a scribe under orders. Some people call this automatic writing. I mean, what you call it for me is not essential.
Mm-hmm.
Essential is the result. It was a one-page text that has now gone around the world for many years. I now have a website just on blessing, gentleartofblessing.org.
Yes.
Gentleartofblessing, all one word,
Mm-hmm.
.org.
Yes.
And on the homepage, there's an extraordinary video by the webmaster Jane Young that she created on this text, which has been seen by over 300,000 people on YouTube. And for 30 years, I've been receiving feedback from people. It works, it works, it works. And on the website, the Gentle Art of Blessing website, there's a whole section on healing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I could share with you a few healings if you want.
Sure, please.
Okay. My favorite one is by this head of a supermarket. It's a big supermarket chain in Switzerland, and they have large shops in all the main cities. And he was the head of one of these large stores, and he fell into a deep depression. He had to go to a clinic, have all these big pharma drugs stuffed down his throat.
Mm-hmm.
And after months, it appeared to lessen, and he came out of, I was going to say came out of prison, came out of clinic.
Yes.
And started work again. And after a very few weeks, he started slipping down. He felt he was slipping down again into depression, and he was totally upset, as you can imagine. And he went to see his psychiatrist. And this is the amazing part. It's not the usual practice of psychiatrists. He said, Mr. Ullman, I refuse to give you any drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Here is what I'm giving you. And he handed this man my book, The Gentle Art of Blessing.
Wow.
And Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now.
Now, yes.
And the Blessing book just turned his life around. And on the website, you will see his testimony.
Yes.
When he says how his life was completely changed, and that as the head of a large supermarket, he had more than enough opportunities to bless the whole day long.
Yes.
And his testimony is just a canticle of joy. It was so beautiful.
Yes. And
another true story, which was shared with me by a good friend. She's an MD and anesthesist. How do you call the people who put someone to sleep in an operation?
Oh, anesthesiologist. Yes. Anesthesiologist. Yes. Yes.
And she'd been requested to go on a humanitarian mission to Nigeria. In other words, she was not paid. She was doing this on her vacation, she took even quite a few months in the end. And at the time, and there still is now, there were rebel troops in the north of the country that were fighting against the government in the capital of Niamey, and these were Berber rebels. The Berbers and the Arabs and the Black Africans are separate races, and they felt very oppressed by the central government, so they entered a state of rebellion. And she was in an area of the northern country North Niger, where there were rebel groups. And one day, she and three of her colleagues were arrested by stopped by these rebels, and they were put into a Land Rover, which, and she had a young 15-year-old child soldier with his machine gun pointed towards her chest, and she says, "I did not feel very secure."
Right.
These young soldiers are sometimes very trigger happy.
Yes.
But she discovered the gentle art of blessing shortly before leaving on her mission, and she'd been very touched by the text on the art of blessing, the one-page text, and she'd sent it to some friends.
Yes.
This is just a parenthesis. So they drive to the camp, the rebel camp, and she was already thinking, well, this has happened quite a few times, they'll keep us captives and ransom us, ask for a ransom from the French government to release it. And if it's not paid, well, they'll kill us. And she was really very disturbed. And they got to the camp, and they were still just sitting in the Land Rover with this young soldier with guns still pointed at her. And suddenly, the top chief of the rebels came to the car and said, "You can all go home."
Wow.
She was just dumbfounded, and as her colleagues were, and they left. And later, she continued her mission despite this dangerous situation. And sometime later, she got a letter from one of the friends to whom she had sent my text on the art of blessing. And he told her that he had felt impelled to stop everything and just start blessing her colleagues, and the whole situation.
Yes.
That very evening, and they checked the time, it was exactly when they'd been arrested.
Yes.
And again, I could, there's a whole book full of these blessings. I could tell you many more blessings and many stories.
Yes.
But I think that's enough. And so
yes,
I continue my workshops.
yes,
I continue writing, and it's a great joy.
yes, yes. And I do, thank you so much for sharing those wonderful stories, because what I just doing the work that I'm doing with this show, I hear so many things of that nature where things just miraculously change for the person when they bless, like you say, bless that person, bless, because when we understand that we're all connected, and when you bless another person, you're really just blessing yourself, because they're an aspect of you.
Exactly.
Yes, yes.
Now, one thing I do a lot, well, I've been doing for 30 years, is blessing people on public, for instance, in the street, on public transport. I have no car. I've only had a car for 1 year in my long existence. And so I travel by public transport, and I have so many opportunities to bless, people. And in the past year, so I as the text explains,
Yes.
I bless the people in the opposite of the problem they seem to have. One extraordinary and beautiful thing that has happened to me with this constant blessing is that I've become so sensitive to any form of suffering. The very second I see suffering, I start blessing. And so if I see someone who's deeply depressed, I always bless. That's the practice that I teach. The opposite, the spiritual opposite of the material condition. For instance, somebody who is deeply depressed, I bless them in their joy, in their in their peace, in their serenity.
Yes.
A drunkard who's shouting and walking and yelling in the street, I bless him in his mastery,
Yes.
in his deep contentment. Smokers, I automatically bless any smoker in their deep contentment and satisfaction, because to smoke a little piece of herb, of grass,
Mm-hmm.
ruining your health, somewhere there must be some form of discontent
Yes.
to be able to do this. So I bless them in their deep content and satisfaction. And it's something that's very beautiful.
Yes.
But in the past year, I've started blessing in a new way.
Mm.
And this is one of the most demanding things that practices that I've ever practiced in my whole existence. When I look at people in the bus, for instance, before saying I bless you in your peace, in your joy, in your whatever, I look at them really, whether they are looking at me or not. Usually they're not looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
I look at them really attentively and say, mentally, of course, always.
Yes. Yes.
My heart.
Yes.
I love you.
Mm-hmm.
I bless you in your peace, in your health, in your joy, whatever. And this, to really look at a person and say this from the heart, not from the mind.
Yes.
Because blessing is 100% heart energy.
Yes.
To say this and really mean it, boy, Caroline, it really forces me to go beyond any little psychological human resistances
Yes.
I can have towards my neighbor.
Yes.
And I'm just learning this. Every day I see how demanding it is, really. So there we are.
Yes, that is so true. I kind of, my little practice is, like you said, mentally from the heart, I say namaste to everyone I pass. Yes,
Wonderful.
yes, because that means, and if people don't know, namaste means I bow down, I honor the divine in you, because the divine is in all of us.
Of course, Karen.
Yes.
It's the same as blessing. I mean, these are just different formulas, words.
Yes.
But excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
For me, what counts is the intention of the heart.
So true. So true. So
whether
true.
I say namaste or whether I say bless you or any other formula, what
Yes.
counts and what heals is to feel what you say. One of my great, great sources of inspiration in the spiritual field is a fabulous and amazing American mystic of the last century called Joelle Goldsmith.
Okay.
Joelle was a well-known person, Eckhart Tolle,
Okay.
who's not quite a reference in the world today, certainly one of the great minds of the planet, has said that Joelle is going to become one of the main spiritual references of this century.
Mm.
And Joelle insists so much that truth must be felt.
Yes.
Truth that is just repeated has absolutely no healing power.
Okay.
To heal, and I think this is true of blessing, for blessing to heal, it must be said from the deepest part of my heart.
Yes.
With utter sincerity.
Yes, this is true. The intention. That is so
Only
true.
sincerity
Yes.
for both are indispensable.
Mm-hmm. Very true. And the heart energy is so much stronger than the mind.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, well, have you heard about the Heart Math Institute in California?
Yes.
They have discovered that the energy of the heart is 5,000 times more powerful than the mind.
Wow.
Extraordinary. 5,000 times.
Yes.
And for me, more and more my spirituality is on the level of the heart. You know, even before I studied sociology, I have a doctorate in sociology, and before sociology, I even studied theology. So I have I think, quite a good knowledge of the of the Christian institution and
Yes.
churches. But for me, my father occupied a very, very important position in the Presbyterian Protestant world, and as general secretary of World Presbyterian Alliance, which grouped at the time all the Reformed Presbyterian churches in the world. And at the end of his career, he was very disabused with church organization and the administrative and the very sort of cut and dry aspect, the formal practice of religion. And he told me, you know, I'd left the church many years before, 50 years before, and he told me, you know, you have gone further on the spiritual path than I. And at the end of his life, he was desperately searching for a really active, felt experience. And so again, one can never insist too much on the fact that true spirituality, true blessing, is on the level of the heart.
So true.
A blessing is, I repeat this, it's so important, only a blessing that comes from the heart can heal.
Yes.
A blessing that is just from the mind, it won't do anything. Just like reading the newspaper. But a blessing must come from the heart. And I was wondering if I could read to you one or two blessings.
Please.
From my book.
Of course. Yes.
Okay. Well, let me read this in. One that touches a theme that touches me very, very much. Having lived many years of my life in the third world, is the problem of child soldiers. It is impossible to know how many there are in the world.
Yes.
Probably many thousands, and probably tens of thousands. And the definition of child soldiers is that any young person under the age of 18,
yes,
recruited by a state or an armed group, because sometimes it's states, to be used as fighters, cooks, suicide bombers, human shield, messengers, spies, or for sexual purposes.
Yes.
And in the last 15 years, the use of child soldiers has spread to almost every region of the world and every armed conflict. And some of these soldiers, some of these children,
yes,
are under the age of 10.
Oh my goodness.
When they are forced to serve.
Mm-hmm.
And there are, of course, many young girls used as sexual slaves, and they urgently need our blessing.
Yes.
So here's my blessing for these children.
Yes.
From our heart of hearts, we bless children who are abducted and forced to serve in armed conflict. We bless them in their innocence, that despite the trying and sometimes dramatic situation they are in, deep down inside them, the consciousness of this innocence stays awake. We bless them in their fundamental integrity, that the horrendous things they are forced to witness and often to accomplish may not erase their desire to escape from the human hell they have been forced into, or their belief in another more humane and normal life and the possibility of one day achieving it. We bless them in their consciousness of their oneness with you, infinite love, and of their essentially perfect divine identity. When they walk through the valley of the shadow of death, may your hand keep them safe from all evil, both from performing it or being its victim. When solitude, hunger, sheer despair, or the desire to give up on life truly grips them, May the comforting presence of grace support them and lift them up. And finally, we bless the adults who so uncaringly force children who could be their own into such situations, that your spirit may awaken them to their true nature as children of God.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I like how you said the awaken and praying for the adults in the situation, because in my heart, we are all inside. We are divine, but many are asleep, very deeply asleep when they do acts of that kind. They're very deeply asleep to who they truly are. Yes.
Now, at the end of my text on blessing, this one-page text, of which there's this beautiful video on the website, there's a postscriptum to the text, which for me is the most important. I'll read just this one line.
Oh, sure.
And of course, above all, do not forget to bless the utterly beautiful person you are.
Yes.
We so need to bless ourselves daily.
Yes.
And so I'd like to read you a second blessing on developing infinite kindness towards myself. It's good to be kind to other people. It's wonderful, but it must start with ourselves.
Yes.
How can we give to others something we do not give to ourselves?
So true. So true.
Here's this blessing. I bless myself in my ability to express infinite kindness to the child of the universe I am. May I unhesitatingly express to myself the kindness I am so willing to extend to others. When I stumble or fall, may I grant myself a tender word of kindness rather than a harsh reprimand. When I procrastinate, play tricks with myself, or knowingly avoid a needed challenge, may I allow myself to become aware of the harm I am doing myself rather than knocking myself around with angry words. When I am struggle weary and feel like giving up the fight, may I allow myself to rest in your green pastures rather than hitting myself on the head or whipping myself along. And finally, may I always be aware of the barrier between the deceitful hammock of self-indulgence and the true wisdom of authentic kindness towards myself, remembering your words spoken through a great spiritual seer. This is my beloved child, in whom I am well pleased. A statement that applies to every single one of us on the planet. And I've added, and other planets too.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So important.
Yes.
Now, along a complete different line of thought, I mentioned to you a blessing for making love.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
To show, if I may read it, to show people that spirituality applies to every single situation.
Yes.
And I'm not interested in a spirituality that is selective.
Yes.
It must be total, 100% coverage of every single human situation, or I'm not interested. I was raised in a narrow church where sexuality was looked down upon and even felt sinful about it.
Yes.
And since then, of course, I've discovered it too. It can be one of the most beautiful experiences in life.
Definitely, yes.
So here we are. May our lovemaking be a perfect expression of your love for us, an experience of ecstatic beauty and profound depth. May we put our partner's pleasure before our own.
No, I'm sorry.
I'll start again.
That's okay. You keep going. No, you keep reading. I'm sorry. That I didn't realize my cell phone was right next to me.
So I'll start again.
Yes, please. Yes,
I
please.
just read the first sentence. May our lovemaking be a perfect expression of your love for us, an experience of ecstatic beauty and profound depth. May we put our partner's pleasure before our own and be most sensitive to their most subtle wish and hidden desires. May our bodies become instruments playing music for your glory, and our hearts be filled with the music of soul. May we, in the rush of busy lives, find refreshment for our soul, a sigh of peaceful rest for our bodies, and a special moment of green pastures for our deeper being. May it cement our togetherness in a unique way. True lovemaking restores both body and soul, while at the same time being a gentle playground for the child in us. And above all, may it strengthen our commitment of faithfulness to each other in the understanding that we are both each other's keeper and the keepers of our spoken and unspoken vows.
Yes, that's so beautiful. So beautiful. That's so true. And yes, spirituality. See, that's why, I mean, I was brought up, not, my family wasn't Catholic, but they sent me to Catholic school. So I went to Catholic school, and I was, kind of brought up in a traditional religion that never resonated with me because of what you said. It had too much separation in it, and if it doesn't include everything and everyone, then my spiritual awakening truly came from science. I studied metaphysics, but it was the truth of science was proving the oneness of everything.
Exactly.
Yes. And that's what really, I'm like, yes, now I got it. So that once I understood that, it made everything made sense to me.
Could I share now?
Sure.
I think the most important lesson I've learned in the past 2-3 years that has fundamentally changed my life to the extent that I can practically never judge anymore. And that is the understanding that every single one is at his or her highest level of consciousness.
Exactly.
Every single one.
Yes.
And I'll give you an example of how this applies. Some time ago, I was sitting at my desk and I receive a phone call. I reply. The phone rings. I reply. And a gentleman, I'm in Switzerland, in French-speaking Switzerland, where we speak French.
Okay.
And a gentleman speaks to me in English with a very, very heavy Indian accent.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, this is the Apple Windows office in London, and we are phoning you because you seem to have problems with your computer, which is working very slowly. And I'm Caroline, I'm a Paleolithic caveman as far as the computers and the functioning of computers go.
Yes.
You can make me swallow anything. And we start talking, and suddenly I see his mouse moving across my screen.
Uh-huh.
And he starts saying, look, we have to correct this, and I have to rub this out, and this will make it function more faster. And
yes.
A whole computer jargon, I don't understand a thing of it.
Right.
But after 20 minutes of this,
mm-hmm.
I start feeling very uneasy.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly, after about 25 minutes, half an hour, he said, well, it costs $150. And I said, what? But you never mentioned there was any payment. I mean, I thought this was sort of an official call. You said you were calling from Apple Windows office in London.
Yes.
He says, no, you know that in this world, everything is, you have to pay for everything. If you have your bank card, you can pay straight away. And I'm a noodle, as one says in English, you know.
Right.
Instead of pulling off the internet contact, which would have interrupted all our conversation,
yes,
I paid the $150 immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said goodbye, and I jumped on my phone,
yes,
phoned my webmaster.
yes,
He said, yeah, you've been tricked in the most classical manner.
yes,
Pull out your internet contact immediately, cancel your bank card immediately,
yes,
and you will have to come and see me. He lives in another part of Switzerland,
yes,
and I will have to change your whole system.
yes.
And the whole thing cost me about $450 to $500, and I'm not the person who has this kind of money to throw around.
Right. Yes.
Caroline, the very second I realized I'd been tricked, I started blessing the man.
Yes.
Because I felt such compassion for him.
Mm-hmm.
Here's someone who spends his whole lifetime cheating people all around the planet.
Yes.
He will never be able to be happy when he does that all day long. And my webmaster told me that in New Delhi and Bombay, there are large offices where you have dozens of people doing nothing else
all day long.
but it's all day long. And I felt, and for weeks after that,
you kept
I
blessing.
really blessed this man.
Yes.
And you know, I wrote recently a piece. I don't know. I think it was for our website. I do such a lot of writing for all sorts of organizations.
Yes.
Where I explained that from the very day that President Trump declared himself a candidate to be president, so long before he was elected, I started blessing him every day.
Yes.
And every day I bless President Trump, President Putin, President Assad of Syria, who's considered the greatest criminal on the planet today, who's totally destroyed his own countries and pushed millions into refugee status, and President Kim of North Korea, and now I've just added on President Bolsonaro of Brazil, the new president of Brazil, who's an extreme right-wing person who's decided to eliminate the Ministry of the Environment. Can you imagine? Brazil, that has the largest forest surface in the whole planet, he's opening up the Amazon forest to the big developers who continue cutting down trees at a much faster rate, creating large farms. And he said the Indian minorities are of no importance. You know, the minorities have to bow to the majorities. Usually all around the world, the majorities have to take the minorities into great consideration, which is the case in my country, Switzerland. I think there are few countries in the world where minorities have such an importance and such place. So this man needs immense blessing. And I can really say that I bless all those
world leaders
from the heart and feel real compassion for them.
Yes.
Because somewhere that is their highest level of consciousness.
Yes, I believe the same thing. I believe everyone on the planet, all 7 billion people, are each operating at their highest level of consciousness. And I always said, you know, Donald Trump is, President Trump is a part of the oneness. He's not separate, you know. Yes, He's part of the oneness. And when I get those calls all the time, and I'm an expert with the computer. I get the Windows. We're calling from, first of all, Windows would never, Apple would never call you, Windows would never call you. But I'm a computer expert, and I get those calls all the time. And I sometimes I will just say, why are you trying to trick people all day long? Yeah, and then they'll hang up on me because they know they can't, but I get those calls all the time. But I know exactly what you're saying. But I know that they prey on people who are not good with computers, because now everybody has a computer, whether they know how to use it or not. Exactly. so they prey on yes. So, but yes, blessing. Well, you know what? Well, I can share one with you that happened recently with me. I belong to Planet Fitness. It's a gym that's located all over the country. And I go to my local Planet Fitness here, and I have a lock for my locker. But I went away to Cape Cod for the first time this summer, visiting some family in Cape Cod, and they had a Planet Fitness there, but I packed everything for working out except for my lock. The lock but I said, I left my valuable stuff, my purse in the car underneath the seat, but I had in a tote bag a change of clothes. So I went in with my tote bag and change of clothes, and I put the tote bag in the locker without locking it, thinking, nobody's gonna bother my clothes. They didn't steal. She didn't steal my clothes. It had to be a she because it's the women's locker room. She didn't steal my clothes. She took my clothes out, including my underwear, out and stole my bag.
My gosh.
And I was like, okay, I blessed her, and I said, okay, she must have needed it more than I did. But I was so shocked that while I was working out, someone actually stole my bag from my locker. Yes. So, yes. So,
as you say, she needs your blessings.
Yes, I had to bless her.
That was her highest level of consciousness,
exactly.
Which is not an excuse.
Yes.
For accepting anything. For instance, President Assad, I have no excuses. It's not my job to excuse him in any case, but
exactly.
For his behavior, he is totally responsible.
Yes.
For his behavior.
Right.
The law of right returns.
Mm-hmm.
That one reaps what one sows.
Exactly.
It's the fundamental law of the universe.
Yes.
Or at least of the planet. I can't
exactly.
speak of the universe. And he will have to face every single crime he committed one day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how I look at it is when we go back to spirit, not in physical, but when we're back in spirit, we actually get a review. We review what we did, and we feel what the harm we did to others. We actually feel that. So it's actually us who says, I have to go fix that. I have to make that better. I was unconscious when I did this act. Now I'm awake, and I want to go back at it and give it another try and do better. And so that's how I look at karma. Karma is a balancing, but it's us balancing us. Meaning we look at ourselves from when in spirit, we see the things that we've done when we're here in the human flesh, and we don't remember. We chose not to remember. But when we're in spirit, we remember and we feel what we did to others. So when we want to correct that, we want to balance that. So that's how I view it. So it's us that will eventually correct what we did in another lifetime. Yes.
I quite agree with you. Now, we're approaching then. Can I maybe read a blessing or two more?
Oh, please. Yes. Please share. Yes.
So, one of the great problems. Hello?
I'm here.
I don't see you.
I'm here. I'm still here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but
okay, but I see you. Everything is good because I'm recording. Everything is good.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
So one of the big social problems of our Western world, it's not a problem in the third world or much, much less, is suicide.
Yes.
In Switzerland, I think suicide between the ages of something like 14 and 18
Yes.
is the main cause of death of young people.
Wow.
The
And
main
yes.
cause of death in that age bracket is suicide.
Wow.
It's dramatic, and we are one of the wealthiest countries in the world. I mean, really. So it's just a proof that money doesn't bring happiness.
Exactly.
Everybody knows that now.
Yes.
We extend our love and burning compassion to the thousands all around the planet who are considering at this very moment taking their own lives. We bless them from the depths of our soul that they may, by some miracle, for instance, the normal functioning of grace, that is, for me, is a miracle, is a normal functioning of grace, that they may be, by some miracle, touched by some event, experience, feeling, which puts an end to their somber plans or halts their unpremeditated self-destructive impulse. May the magic of grace break through all the darkness in their heart, that they somehow feel the unconditional caring of the source of the universe for their good and their wholeness, yea, even their deep happiness. Despite all the self-loathing and self-condemnation, or simply their utter and total despair, may they feel that infinite love has already forgiven in advance anything and everything they could ever do. We bless them that they may understand that the lessons they might be avoiding here on earth will have to be learned in another realm or another incarnation, and that these lessons are solely for their good, however tough they seem to be, and some are admittedly horrendously challenging. We bless those who surround them, that they may find just the right words to turn them around, and invoke in them that glimmer of hope that makes all difference. And if they have made a failed attempt at taking their own life, may they be received not with condemnation or a frown, but with open hearts and arms and loving faces and words that evoke in them the desire to live a full and useful life.
Yes. So beautiful and so true. So true. And I believe those statistics are very true for the US as well, with especially teenage suicide.
Yes, I've seen some figures on that too.
Yes.
And it is a real challenge.
Yes.
I'd like to finish with maybe a couple more.
Yes, please.
One on embracing the whole world in my heart, because we are one with everyone and everything.
Yes.
As we awaken to true reality, our arms extend ultimately the whole planet and every form of life on the planet. May I make my heart broad enough to welcome the whole world. May the understanding that my neighbor is myself enable me to welcome him in my heart, whoever she or he may be, Afghan immigrant or member of a local gang, the drug peddler down the road, or the uptight Victorian spinster. May I embrace all those I meet today as I learn to see all with the eyes of the heart. May I learn to tear off all labels social, psychological, ethnic, however resistant they may appear, and see instead only the manifestation of life's goodness. May I embrace the infinite variety of nature's manifestations, from the tiniest insect to the colossal glacier, understanding that my survival is linked to theirs. And finally, may I lift up all those who are suffering and entrust them to the arms of love, the love that embraces and cares for every single being. There we are.
Yes.
I think that was an appropriate ending to a theme of oneness, embracing
Yes.
the
Yes.
whole world
Yes.
in oneness, which is the
Yes.
basic fact.
Right.
I think.
Oh, Awake to Oneness. Well, I also like to thank you so much. And your books and the links to your books will be in the blog post for this show, which will air next week. But I also want to thank you so much. And I want to share with my listeners that I've been now hosting and producing Awake to Oneness Radio now for 3.5 years. And the audience is growing very nicely. I'm at the point where I want to start. I haven't really started asking, because this Awake to Oneness Radio is completely nonprofit. I put in the work to produce the show, all at with no income coming in from the show. So I'm asking my listeners that if they find value and if they get inspiration from the show, if they can go to the website and maybe give a small donation. Small donations will help to support the programming for Awake to Oneness Radio.
Wonderful.
So Awake to Oneness, and the website is awaketoonenessradio.org. So
Wonderful.
thank you. Yes.
It was a great joy, Caroline, to share something that is so dear to my heart.
Well, thank you, Pierre. Thank you so much for being my guest. I love every time I've gotten to communicate with you on several occasions. You were my guest before 2 years. You were my guest 2 years ago. And with Working with Humanities team, I got to do quite a few shows with you. So I really enjoy every time we do something together. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Caroline,
Thank
for
you.
calling me. Bye-bye, my friend.
Okay, bye-bye, and enjoy the rest of your evening, because it's evening there. So I know you have an appointment. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Well, in fact, the appointment is a blessing circle.
Oh.
I created a blessing circle in Geneva.
Yes.
Where we, every 2 weeks, just to bless situations, including nature and people and all sorts of things. So I'm leaving for that.
Oh, wonderful. Well, have a wonderful blessing circle this evening.
And if somebody wants to create their own, they will find on the website how to do it.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. And tell us your website one more time. Share your website.
Gentle Art of Blessing, all linked together, gentleartofblessing.org.
Okay, very good. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.